Hello and welcome to my Yu-Gi-Oh channel. Today we're going to be reviewing the new cards which have been found within the Maze set. This is the set that's supposed to support the Paradox Brothers. The first card being Labyrinth Heavy Tank. It's a level 7 Dart Attribute Machine type effect monster with 2,400 attack and defense points. You can normal summon this card without tributing. It cannot attack the turn it is normal summoned. During your main phase you can place one of your Sange of the Thunder, Kazejin or Suijin that is banished or in your hand or deck face up in your spell and trap zone as a continuous spell. Then, if you control a Labyrinth Wall card, you can destroy one monster your opponent controls. You can only use this effect of Labyrinth Heavy Tank once per turn. The interesting thing about this card is it's an incarnation of another card. The original Labyrinth Tank was a fusion monster that required two very specific materials, being Gigatech Wolf and Cannon Soldier. Essentially, it didn't have any effects, so that's why it was deemed not useful. You know, at the original set of Yu-Gi-Oh, you tended to have fusion monsters that didn't have any sort of abilities. This is able to just instantly normal summon itself, which can be a good thing considering that it doesn't require any sacrifices, any tributes. The only downside is you cannot attack during the turn it's summoned. During the main phase, being able to take one of your three deity monsters, Sange, Suijin or Kazejin, and put it in your spell and trap zone means that you have easier access to them within the future when you need to summon those to the field, and you get the bonus if you happen to have a Labyrinth Wall on the field, which is synonymous with the deck and the archetype, to be able to destroy one of your opponent's monsters. It is only a once as it's summoned effect, so there is the disadvantage. It's not a reoccurring effect, otherwise I think it would be a little bit too powerful. But generally speaking, even if you're not going to use this in its own archetype, it's a decent summon as you're able to use it as a rank 7 Exceed play. Shadow Ghoul of the Labyrinth is a level 5 Dart Attribute Zombie type effect monster with 1,600 attack points and 1,300 defense. You can discard this card, add one Labyrinth Wall card from your deck to your hand. At the start of the damage step, if your opponent's monster battles while you control a Labyrinth Wall card, you can banish this card from your graveyard, destroy that opponent's monster. You can only use each effect of Shadow Ghoul of the Labyrinth once per turn. So in terms of how this links to the original version of itself, in the anime it's shown to be moving through the Labyrinth Wall itself, being able to just randomly attack into opponent's monsters. This has the ability to just search into a Labyrinth Wall card, and you've got various forms of support, and if your opponent happens to battle whilst you have the Labyrinth Wall card on the field, you're able to destroy that monster. This combines very well with the Labyrinth Heavy Tank, as both have that destruction based effect, the only difference being that this is able to do this during your opponent's turn, whereas the Labyrinth Heavy Tank has to use that effect when it's summoned. I would say it doesn't really have too many similarities to its original version. The normal Shadow Ghoul has the ability to boost its attack points 100 times the number of monsters in your graveyard, so there isn't any indication or reflection of that effect. Gate Guardian combined is a level 12 Dart Attribute Warrior type fusion effect monster with 3,750 attack and 3,400 defense. The materials require a Sange of the Thunder, a Kazejin and a Suijin, and must be special summoned from your extra deck by banishing the above cards from your hand, field and or graveyard. When your opponent activates a card or effect that targets a card you control, as a quick effect you can negate that effect, and if you do, destroy that card. You can only use this effect of Gate Guardians combined thrice per turn. If this face-up special summoned card in its owner's control leaves the field because of an opponent's card, you can special summon one level 11 or lower Gate Guardian monster from your deck or extra deck, ignoring its summoning conditions. In terms of how it's like the original Gate Guardian, it does have the same stats in terms of the attack and defense. The materials required to summon it are the same, but I believe that was a level 11 monster, whereas this is a level 12. The summoning on this card isn't too difficult, as it just requires you to use the cards from the hand, field and or graveyard. So long as you can get them in any of those three positions, you're able to instantly bring this card out. It's also able to negate types of effects up to 3 times a turn, which is useful as it also has the destruction based effect. This has a mirror image to how the Gate Guardian is meant to function within the anime, as I think in the anime it's meant to stop up to 3 attacks per turn, whereas this is stopping up to 3 effects per turn. This is a much better improvement to, in my opinion, and maybe if this type of effect had been introduced when the Gate Guardians were originally introduced way back in Metal Raiders, this was like 2003, 2002 era, that's why it would have been much more viable. The fact that when this card is actually gotten rid of, be it by your opponents destroying it by battle with one of their monsters or by any type of effect, just lets you come out with any of the Gate Guardian monsters, is perfectly fine because you can actually bring out the the original Gate Guardian and there aren't any restrictions to it. You also have some further support down the line, which are also Gate Guardian fusion monsters, which can also be summoned through this effect. Gate Guardian of Thunder and Wind is a level 9 light attribute Thunder type fusion effect monster with 2500 attack and 2200 defense. The materials are 1 Sange of the Thunder and 1 Kazejin. It must be special summoned from your extra deck by banishing the above cards you control. During your main phase, you can add 1 spell or trap card from your deck to your hand that mentions Sange of the Thunder, Kazejin, and Suijin. You can only use this effect of Gate Guardian of Thunder and Wind once per turn. If this face-up special summon card in its owner's control leaves the field because of an opponent's card, you can special summon one of your banished Sange of the Thunder or Kazejin. The nice thing about this card is it's supposed to be a fusion of Kazejin and Sange. That's why it's beings of Thunder and Wind. That's why the naming comes down to it. It's a level 9, and if you remember the anime, they very much use the counterparts to fuse together, so it's linking back to that. The summoning condition on this card isn't too difficult, as there are ways of getting out your monsters, the Sange and Kazejin, out very quickly, and this instantly upon its summon within the main phase each and every turn, you're able to consistently add one of the spell or trap support cards within the deck so long as it lists any of those 3 monsters. When this card leaves the field by anything your opponent does, you're able to just recover your Sange or your Kazejin. Considering both will be banished in order to summon this card, that's going to be an easy reoccurable type of effect, and it keeps true to recovering those monsters. The last thing to note about this card is that in terms of its attack points, if you notice, Sange has 2600 attack and Kazejin has 2400 attack. It's a melding of both and a middling ground of both attack points. Gate Guardian of Wind and Water is a level 9 wind attribute spellcaster type fusion effect monster with 2450 attack points and 2300 defense. The materials require a Kazejin and a Suijin. They must be special summoned from your extra deck by banishing the above cards you control. Once per chain, when your opponent activates a spell or trap effect on the field, as a quick effect, you can negate that effect. You can only use this effect of Gate Guardian of Wind and Water twice per turn. If this face-up special summon card in its owner's possession leaves the field because of an opponent's card, you can special summon one of your banished Kazejin or Suijin. Like the previous version, this has the attack difference between the 2 monsters. Suijin has 2500, Kazejin has 2400, so the mixed halfway point is 2450. The summoning is also very easy because you just need those 2 materials on the field, and banishing them, you can just bring them out. The effect is most similar to the Gate Guardian combined because it does have that double negation effect. So if you have both of these monsters on the field, you could potentially negate effects up to 5 times per turn. The difference between this is with the combined version, it also destroys those cards, whereas this only negates those effects. So if your opponent has continuous based effects that can be activated each and every turn, that will become a potential problem if you can't defeat them within those turns. The removal of this card by any of your opponent's cards just replaces itself with either your Kazejin or your Suijin. Gate Guardian of Water and Thunder is a level 9 water attribute aqua type fusion effect monster with 2550 attack and 2300 defense points. It requires a Suijin and a Sange of the Thunder and must be special summoned from your extra deck by banishing the above cards you control. Once per chain, as a quick effect, you can target one of face-up monster your opponent controls, change its attack to 0 until the end of this turn. You can only use this effect of Gate Guardian of Water and Thunder twice per turn. If this face-up special summon card in its owner's control leaves the field because of an opponent's card, you can special summon one of your banished Suijin or Sange of the Thunder. In terms of the attack points, it's the same as the others. Sange has 2600, Suijin has 2500, so it's 2550. The effect itself is the most similar to the original deity monsters because they have the ability once whilst they're on the field to zero out your opponent's attack points when they battle into that monster. This happens to be able to do this twice per turn, considering that you're using both of those materials, and it's consistent because it can be used each and every turn, whereas I believe that's how the original anime version was adopted. They watered down the effect when it came to creating the actual cards. The removal of this card by your opponent's effect just lets you bring out the Suijin or the Sange, depending on what you need, and I would advise using Sange always all the time, as it has that additional 100 attack points over Suijin. Labyrinth Wall Shadow is a field spell card. The effect is monsters cannot attack the turn they are summoned, except monsters whose original level is 5 or higher. Once per turn during a main phase, you can place one of your Sange of the Thunder, Kazejin or Suijin that is banished, or in your hand or deck face up in your spell and trap zone as a continuous spell. At the start of your opponent's battle phase, you can target one monster your opponent controls with less than 1600 attack points and destroy it. The concept of this card is most of the support that the Paradox Brothers had were level 5 or higher. If you think cards such as Dungeness Worm, you had the Monster Tamer, you had all of the Gate Guardian types of monsters, Labyrinth Tank, all of those were higher than level 5. That meant that this is a good restriction against your opponents. If they cannot get anything above that, that becomes their issue, that they cannot attack on the turn they are summoned. There is another card which is a continuous spell card which has a similar style of effect, but it affects both you and your opponent. I think it's something called the Mysterious Bog. It has a style of effect like that. The other effect of this simply lets you search for any of your 3 deity monsters and put it in your spell and trap zone as a continuous spell card. I'm not necessarily sure why the purpose of that card is, unless you're able to destroy your own back row and then be able to recover those cards. In terms of the opponent's battle phase, I'm a little confused why it has to be less than 1600 attack points when the monsters are attacking, but I suppose it's a good way of discouraging your opponent's lower level monsters and the lower attacking monsters. You have to consider as well that this is coming at a point where levels are no longer as significant. I mean, you have cards which are Xyz, you have link monsters, and you have those as the current standard as monsters that can beat over level type of effects. So by at least having the attack limitation on it, that's a good way of wiping out some of the weaker monsters that happen to dodge the level type of effects. Double Attack Wind and Thunder is a quick play spell card. Its effect is if you control a Gate Guardian monster, target one card on the field, destroy it. During the main phase, you can banish this card from your graveyard, add one of your Sange of the Thunder, kazejin or suijin that is banished or in your deck to your hand. You can only use this effect of Double Attack Wind and Thunder once per turn. The purpose of this card is it's just a quick play destruction effect. It can target one of your opponent's spell, trap or monsters, or even one of yours if you deem that to be the case. And during the main phase, just by banishing this card, you're able to then search for any of those specific deity monsters and then bring that card from the deck to the hand. It's a good way of then replenishing your resources and bringing those monsters back more easily without having to run specific search cards. Yugioh Guardian is a normal spell card. The effect is if your life points are lower than your opponent's, target one monster you control with Gate Guardian in its original name. Half your opponent's life points, then that monster gains attack equal to your opponent's life points. You can banish this card from your graveyard to add one of your Sange of the Thunder, kazejin or suijin that is banished or in your deck to your hand. You can only use each effect of Yugioh Guardian once per turn. This is actually based off the original Yugioh, but it has a couple of limitations to it. Whereas Yugioh can do that type of effect normally, it actually splits your opponent's monster's attack in half just to let you boost yours until the end of the turn. This has the permanent benefit of giving you those additional attack points, although you do have to be in a position where you are losing the duel. You have to be at a lower life points. So if you're at a higher point, this could be a bit of a disadvantage to you to draw into, or you're going to have other cards which can reduce your life points to a point where you can guarantee the use of this effect. It's a very battle phase style of effect in that it's very simple. It's just you beat over your opponent's monsters using the effect of this card. It's fine, but we're at a point of Yu-Gi-Oh where this type of effect can easily be negated. On the plus side as well, you have to consider once this card is banished, you're just able to recover any of those 3 deity monsters, so it's definitely worth running in multiple. Prey of the Gumo is a continuous trap card. Its effect is special summon this card as a normal monster. It's an insect type earth attribute level 5 with 2100 attack points and 100 defense. To your main monster zone in its same column, this card is also a trap. Then you can destroy one monster your opponent controls in this card's column. You can banish this card from your graveyard, add one of your Sange of the Thunder, kazejin or suijin that is banished or in your deck to your hand. You can only use each effect of Prey of the Gumo once per turn. The benefit of this card is it's supposed to be like a snaring trap card. It's meant to be like the original Gumo within the anime, as it was placed in a undesignated monster zone within the wall labyrinth, and when an opponent's monster actually walked into that space, Gumo would then snare your opponent's monster. This is where the destruction based effect comes into play. It's useful if your opponent already has their board set up and you can just set this in one of those necessary columns to get rid of one of your opponent's cards. It does have decent attack points and it is a level 5 monster, so you could use this as a means of going into rank 5 play if you need to. I think there's another card called Abyss Stingray, which is also a continuous trap monster. That is also a level 5, so you could go into something like number 61 Volcasaurus as an example, or any number of rank 5 Xyz monsters. Also, by banishing this card, you're just able to search for any of the the 3 deity monsters. It's just a means of adding consistency to the deck. And here, just as confirmation, we have the 3 deity monsters. I'm just going to explain over their effects and what they do. Sange of the Thunder is a light attribute thunder type level 7 monster with 2,600 attack points and 2,200 defense points. The effect, once while face up on the field during damage calculation in your opponent's turn, if this card is being attacked, as a quick effect, you can target the attacking monster, make that target's attack 0 during damage calculation only. This effect is very much the same applied to all of the other monsters, so I won't actually be going over them. I will just actually quickly show you their attack and defense stats, but just know that this is the strongest of the 3. This is Suijin. It's a water attribute aqua type level 7 monster with 2,500 attack points and 2,400 defense points. Even though it's the medium level guardian, I think it also has the highest defense points of the 3. This is Kazejin, a wind attribute spellcaster type level 7 with 2,400 attack points and 2,200 defense points. Of the 3 monsters, it's the weakest in both its attack points and its joint with Sange in terms of its defense points. In terms of the set itself, I am actually quite happy with how it is, but I do think they have missed a trick in some regards. For example, in the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX anime, they had the tag team duel between the Paradox Brothers versus Jaden and Cyrus Truesdale. In this, they both used a monster called Dark Guardian. The purpose is when Gate Guardian is sent to the graveyard, you can then bring this card out using the Dark element. It's like a spell card which requires you to then summon this monster, and it's a Dark attribute level 12 monster which cannot be normal summoned or set. It has 3,800 attack and defense points, and it cannot be destroyed by battle. I would have loved to have seen something like this, or potentially I would have liked to have seen anything to do with alternative versions or upgrades of Sange, Kazejin and Suijin, updated effects of them, so we have something a bit more playable, a bit like what they did with the Gate Guardian. They actually made a combined version. I would have maybe liked to have seen like alternative attributes for them, so a dark version, a fire attribute and an earth attribute, and for them to be in the alternative form. There are other cards which were missing, which didn't actually see an upgrade, and I am a little bit disappointed about that. I will cover that. The first one being Monster Tamer. It's an earth attribute warrior type level 5 with 1,800 attack points and 1,600 defense points, a master of monsters that exercises control over several creatures. In the anime, I think it was Para who was able to use it to control Dox's monsters, even if it isn't his own, and I would have liked to have seen an upgrade to that style of effect. It was used against the Dungeon Worm to be able to control it to attack underground any of the opponent's monsters against either Yugi or Joey. Dungeon Worm is an earth attribute insect type level 5 monster with 1,800 attack points and 1,500 defense. Hidden under the floors of a labyrinth. It swallows only who pass above. This in the anime didn't have any abilities, so I can understand why they didn't really interact with it, but I would have liked to have seen an effect version where maybe it can attack twice in a turn, or maybe when it attacks it gains some attack points, because when it was interacting with the Monster Tamer, I think it got a bit of an attack point boost. And this card I was really disappointed not to see an upgrade for. It's called Invigoration. It's an equipped spell card with the effect an earth monster equipped with this card increases its attack by 400 points and increases its defense by 200 points. I think they really missed a trick on this one, because certain equipped cards have had upgrades in the past. I know you've got cards such as Power of the Guardian, which are very usable, and I think if this had had an additional effect attached to it, then it might have been worth running in multiple. It's just a disappointment that they didn't consider some of these cards, and I'm going to be making a separate video looking at what upgrades they could have and forgot from the anime. I'm going to actually rewatch those episodes. I do have them on the original DVD where I got them. I think I must have been like 10 or 12 years old. I was quite young, and it's definitely something I'd like to rewatch to see what they have missed from this new support. As always, I'd love for you guys to put your comments down below what you think of the support. Is there anything you'd like to introduce, or what you had expected and predicted, whether that actually came to feature? As always, I'd love for you to subscribe. It really helps support the channel, and I have over 2,000 videos on this channel. I know there's going to be something that you'll be interested in.